From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Thursday, May the 20th, 2021. We open with a ceasefire reached between Israel and terror group Hamas in Gaza this evening. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a security cabinet meeting tonight to discuss operations in Gaza and to address the ceasefire possibility. And tonight, Israel's security cabinet approved a ceasefire agreement, though at the time of the taping of this newscast, the terms were not yet clear. Earlier today and into this evening, heavy barrages of rockets were fired from Gaza at southern Israel throughout the day today. This after an overnight lull of at least 5 hours. Residents of Israeli towns that border Gaza were told to remain in their shelters. Rockets hit 2 homes in the city of Ashkelon in separate attacks. In the first, a man was lightly injured from flying glass and shrapnel from the rocket. In the second, a home sustained major damage in Ashkelon, but the residents who fled to safety when sirens sounded were unharmed. A rocket also hit a home in Beersheba, as well as in a separate attack earlier, a building in Beersheba's industrial zone. Extensive damage was reported there. And an anti-tank missile was fired from Gaza on an empty IDF bus just outside a military base in southern Israel. The bus had just dropped off 10 soldiers at the base and then exited the front gate where it stopped. The bus then took a direct hit, which lightly injured a soldier who was standing nearby. He was hit by shrapnel and taken to the hospital for treatment. In response, the IDF conducted airstrikes against a number of terror targets in Gaza, including terror tunnels and a multi-barreled rocket launcher. The IDF shared documentation of that airstrike, which shows that the launcher was armed with several rockets ready to fire at Israel. Earlier today, Netanyahu welcomed Germany's Foreign Minister Heiko Maas to Israel, thanking him for Germany's support for Israel and for its right to self-defense. In his meeting with Maas, the prime minister mentioned that a few days ago, Iran sent an armed drone from Iraq or Syria, which he said Israeli forces intercepted on the Jordanian border. Netanyahu said, and that, I think, says everything on the true patron of terror in the Middle East and in the world, Iran. Maas was among several foreign ministers who arrived in Israel today to show their solidarity with the Jewish state. Israel's foreign minister Gabi Ashkenazi gave Ivan Korchok from Slovakia and the Czech Republic's Jakub Kulhanek a tour of rocket damage, including a building hit by rocket fire in Petach Tikva, which affected both men deeply.
For Israel, there is no other option but to protect itself against covert attacks and rockets coming from Hamas. This must be stopped.
I must say that I'm quite speechless, having witnessed firsthand the sheer destruction and terror Israel is facing.
Some 150 pro-Palestinian demonstrators took to the streets of New York City yesterday, blocking traffic outside the Israeli consulate. The NYPD made several arrests, including for disorderly conduct. There were also reports of some of the protesters attacking or instigating a violent confrontation with pro-Israel supporters. Spokesperson of the Israeli consulate in New York, Itai Milner, told JBS, "We understand the frustration and sympathy the protesters have for the Palestinians in Gaza. We also have families in the region, and we know how it feels to be impacted by military operations. However," he said, "many of them are not seeking peace between Israelis and Palestinians. When I hear them chant, 'Palestine will be free from the river to the sea,' I understand very well that what they really want is to rid Israel of its Jews. So it doesn't surprise anyone that some of them take action after spewing hateful speech and randomly attack anything or anyone that seems Jewish to them. We highly condemn this, and the last thing that we want is that the conflict from the Middle East will be imported to New York. And we told you yesterday about the pro-Palestinian group that violently attacked Jewish diners in Los Angeles, which is being investigated as a hate crime by the LAPD. Well, Jewish organizations are sharing their outrage over such incidents on the backdrop of the situation in Israel. The leaders of the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations wrote, "We are shocked and horrified by the recent dramatic rise in anti-Semitic attacks by anti-Israel agitators across the country. These reprehensible, organized, and spontaneous attacks are an unconscionable affront to basic American values and must be emphatically condemned by all who stand against hate and prejudice." CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt, wrote, "To those who choose to indulge in age-old anti-Semitic tropes, exaggerated claims, and inflammatory rhetoric, it has consequences. Attacks in real life on real people targeted for no other reason than they are Jewish. This is anti-Semitism, plain and simple, and it's indisputably inexcusable in any context." Taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Thursday, May the 20th. At 7 o'clock, it's Talmud Study. At 8, Ken Spiro talks about the impact of Judaism on modern political thought. At 9, Mark Golub sits down with Rabbi Robert Wolkoff, who talks about the existence of God and how he understands God's impact on the world. At 10, it's the 2019 National Adult Finals of the World Zionist Organization's Chidon HaTanach, the Bible Contest. And coming up next, Shachar Azani speaks with Gilad Aini, Senior Research Analyst at Camera, about criticisms of Israel in the media. And that's the JBS News Update for Thursday, May the 20th, 2021. I'm Teisha Bader. I'm away tomorrow, but Micah Halpern will be here filling in. Stay healthy, stay well.